Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha, Gopinath Radha, Gopinath Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Gaura Pivanandi. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Simad His Divine Grace Sirabai Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandibhiti Founder Charyas Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada Ki Namasarya Sri Radhadesh Thakur Ki Samavata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtana Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jainitai Gaura Pivanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitam Scha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayashabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart, it becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Shakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Granthala, as the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We have two short mantras I would like you to kindly repeat. The first one is well known. The second one you have to hear a bit more attentively. Anyways, it's all about hearing, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vasaram pangom langayate girim yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. We speak in English, right? No translation needed. Okay, great. So very nice to be here in Radhadesh. I chose specifically a topic, a verse that addresses, I think for all of us as devotees, a very fundamental, essential a topic which is in many ways central to our Vedic culture, the topic of education. And of course, you are known for promoting education as well. I believe last time I was here, I spoke something along those lines. It's very much connected with the whole theme of one aspect of our Vedic culture that we tend to maybe either neglect or less understand the whole Varnashrama Dharma aspect of our Vedic culture. And just a little bit of background, I'm maybe since the last 3 weeks on a 3-month tour to different places, different countries, with a particular theme, which has been the same theme in the last few years. The theme being, make Vrindavan villages. If we want to actually help our founder Acharya, Divine Grace of Prabhupada, to re-establish Vedic culture, which is one of the main objectives of our society, to reintroduce. It started 500 years ago with the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then later this afternoon, for those who are able to attend, we'll be elaborating more on the theme of making Vrindavan villages. One of the foundational aspects of that is directly connected with our verse this morning. That's why I chose the verse this morning. From the 10th canto, 11th chapter, text number 37, just to give a little bit of background, because I don't know what canto you're reading or studying, but sometimes we jump from one canto to another unexpectedly. This is when Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda and all of the associates and devotees are in Gokula. There's a lot of commotion. Commotion means a lot of demons are being sent. And at one point, Nanda Maharaj had a big meeting, reunion, and they make a whole big decision. Let's move from here. Let's go to Vrindavan. So that's all nicely described in the Krishna book and the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So this verse is picking up that thread that they have moved. And so we'll just go directly. It's self-explanatory. Let's see, 37. It's on the board somewhere, correct? Yes. Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yachchantau Bala Chestitai Kala Vakyai Swa Kalena Vatsa Palau Babhuvatuhu Evam Brajaukasam Pritim Yastantau Bala Chestitai Kala Vakyai Swakalena Vatsapalau Babhuvatuhu Evam Vrajau Kasam Pritim Yachchantau Bala Chastitai Kala Vakyai Swakalena Vatsapalau Babhuvatuhu Evam Vrajau Kasam Pritim Yachchantau Bala Chastitai Kala Vakyai Swakalena Vatsapalau Babhuvatuhu
Evam Vrajokasam Pritim Yachchantau Balachestitai Kalavakyai Svakalena Vatsapalau Babhuvatu Evam Vrajokasam Pritim
Yachanto balachestitai
Yachanto balachestitai
Kalavakyai sakalena
Kalavakyai sakalena
Vatsapalo babhuvatu
Vatsapalo babhuvatu.
Ladies.
Evam rajoka sampritim Yachanto balachestitai Kalavakyai sakalena Vatsapalo babhuvatu. Evam rajoka sampritim Yachanto balachestitai Kalavakyai sakalena Vatsapalo babhuvatu.
Evam. In this way. Braja Okesham. To all the inhabitants of Braja. Pritim. Pleasure. Yashantao. Giving. Balachastitai. By the activities and pastimes of childhood. Kalavakyai. And by very sweet broken language. Sakalena. In due course of time. Vatsapalo. To take care of the calves. Babhu Vatuhu. Were grown up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. In this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half-broken language, gave a transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. Kindly repeat after me. In this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys, and talking in half-broken language, gave transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. It's a relatively short purport, so we should try to give our full attention. The purport: as soon as Krishna and Balaram were a little grown up, they were meant for taking care of the calves. Although born of a very well-to-do family, they still had to take care of the calves. And this was the system of education. Those who were not born in Brahmana families were not meant for academic education. The Brahmanas were trained in a literary academic education. The Kshatriyas were trained to take care of the state. And the Vaishyas learn how to cultivate the land and take care of the cows and calves. And later, take care of the cows and calves. There was no need to waste time going to school to be falsely educated and later increase the numbers of the unemployed. Krishna and Balaram taught us by their personal behavior. Krishna took care of the cows and played his flute, and Balaram took care of agricultural activities with a plow in his hand. Translation again. In this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half a broken language, gave a transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. I often quote this particular verse mainly because of what I consider a very crucial, essential purport given by Srila Prabhupada, as he does in all of his purports. Some of them come out more, and we may, this is the nature of Vedic literature, we may read the same verse or the same purport many, many times, and then at one particular time, my God, I didn't realize what was here. Normally when we speak about Vedic education, what comes to mind is what? Gurukul, isn't it? Gurukul is actually the known system of Vedic education. But here, Srila Prabhupada is, at least to me, when I read it some years back, it just kind of really was very meaningful. He speaks about another type of education, which is actually meant for the vast majority of young boys. We need to keep in mind how this Vedic knowledge that we are receiving and all of the different aspects or sciences, Vedic knowledge, Vedic culture is broken into basically 4 what we call Vedic sciences. It's called Chaturvidya. Chaturvidya, the word Vidya, of course, generally means knowledge. In this context, it means sciences. And these sciences are these sciences are practically speaking unknown today in the world. Except for the first of these 4 sciences, it is largely unknown to our own devotees as well. Largely, not fully, fortunately, but largely, unfortunately. And unless we as devotees and we as a society become very well versed in that other type of education, which is meant for the majority of people, then we will be missing out in terms of what is the Vedic culture. One of the central themes, which is meant to be obvious, but it is not obvious, like so many things, Aham Brahmasmi. We're not the body, but we know it theoretically, but in terms of realizing, we know it's not so easy to fully realize. So one of the foundational themes of the Vedic culture is that Vedic culture is an agrarian culture. Of course, we read the Krishna book, we read the 10th canto, we know about Vrindavan Dham, we know about Vrindavan village. But how much do we actually know about Vrindavan village? We know that Vrindavan is Bhauma Vrindavan, the Vrindavan manifested in the material world when Krishna descends once in the day of Lord Brahma, quite rare. And he manifests what is taking place in the original Vrindavan, in the eternal Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. What we generally maybe fail to fully appreciate and understand is that Krishna not only reveals to us the whole spiritual dimension of what is Goloka Vrindavan when he descends, but he also reveals to us these 4 Vedic sciences. There are 2 that are prominent of the 4 in Vrindavan. All 4 are actually connected, but 2 are especially prominent. And we could say they're summarized in a song that we chant every day, that we did this morning. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira, on the banks of the Jamuna. Vana, forest, Chari, activities. The daily activities of Krishna and Balaram and their young friends at that young age, maybe 6, 7 years of age, when Krishna is old enough, that was and is, and still in some places in India, maybe in other countries as well. That is meant to be the standard. Yeah, the point being that Vedic knowledge is an eternal knowledge. Vedic knowledge is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is perfect and complete. Therefore, the knowledge that he is giving is also perfect and complete. When knowledge is perfect and complete, we don't need to change it, isn't it? Because it's complete and it's perfect. Modern day education, or most of the education we know about in Kali Yuga, is constantly changing because it's not connected with the Vedic knowledge. So, this type of education which is being referred to here, Prabhupada makes that statement and it's immediately not obvious to us. Prabhupada says, right, in the 3rd line of the purport, Krishna's going out every day with Balaram and so many hundreds, actually thousands. There are thousands of boys, young boys, who every day go out with thousands, actually describes millions of cows. Prabhupada says, this is Vedic education. What does that mean? We generally think of education, there has to be a building, a classroom, a blackboard. In the Vedic culture, education for the vast majority of people is not behind a desk, is not in a classroom. And we will not understand and realize, and obviously we will not be able to apply or follow or demonstrate that Vedic education unless we really ourselves, after properly realizing and understanding it, manifest. And that can only happen when we develop communities, when we develop rural communities. If we actually understand Vedic culture being an agrarian culture, means the vast majority of people are meant to be living in the country. Prabhupada spoke about this, I would say, quite extensively, gave many direct, clear, and strong instructions to that effect. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure many of you have read in especially the conversations, Prabhupada wanted that we establish so many years ago a Varnashrama college for the purpose of educating, training our devotees in these basic concepts and principles. So I just want to introduce briefly, later on this afternoon, we will go into more details, but there are 4 basic sciences that all of us as devotees, although we may not be able to immediately implement them, but we should know that they are there and that they are actually meant to be introduced and ultimately implemented. The first of these four sciences is called Anvikshiki, Sanskrit term, which means the science of philosophy. And it is the beginning, because unless we start on that level, the other three sciences will not be meaningful. The science of philosophy, which is further broken into subdivisions that we'll not get into right now. The second of the sciences is called Trayi, which means the science of education. There are 14 standard books of knowledge that Prabhupada refers to also in the Bhagavad Gita that make up what we call the science of education, mainly it is actually for the Brahmanas. So it is in the purport here referring to academic education. Academic education. So academic education is the second of these four sciences. Third science is called Dandaniti. Dandaniti means the science of politics. Politics is absolutely essential in any society, in any community. Of course, in Kali Yuga, mostly the word politics has become like a bad word because it's abused and misused, unfortunately, like the word Varnashrama as well. But we should know that Krishna is the greatest of all politicians, and politics is one of the standard bona fide Vedic sciences. That's also having all kinds of subdivisions. Now the fourth science, and we get closer to home here. We get closer to the verse as well. The fourth science is called Varta, V-A-R-T-A, which means the science of economics. Economics doesn't mean only money, but economics in the Vedic culture is very clear, very specific in terms of what is meant to be the most scientific and most sustainable economy. That is meant to provide for all of our different material necessities of life, and which also simultaneously, and that is most important, is meant to help us accelerate our ability to become advanced in Krishna consciousness. There is a wonderful purport, there are so many wonderful purports in the first canto, chapter 9, which is entitled Grandfather Bhishmadev leaves the departure, I forget exactly the title, but Grandfather Bhishmadev on his bed of arrows, beginning his instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And what is the first instruction that Grandfather Bhishmadev gives to Yudhishthira Maharaj? It's verse 26, I believe, 1:9:26. He will give many, many instructions, but the first instruction he gives to Yudhishthira Maharaj, this is after the battle of Kurukshetra, who's about to assume the responsibility of being the emperor for the whole world. So the very first instruction he gives him, I paraphrase, you should know that establishing the 4 varnas and ashramas in society is very essential for organizing properly the society. And in that purport, the very first line of that purport, and I invite you to read the whole purport, but the very first line, Prabhupada explains how this system of varna and ashram, which is given to us by Krishna, which is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he gives a reference, 423, I believe, or 413, no? Chaturvarnamaya system, Guna Karma Vibhagasha. That system that Krishna is giving to humanity is meant to accelerate the development of transcendental spiritual qualities. that statement is very much connected with other statements given by Srila Prabhupada, especially in the conversation on the subject matter of Varnashrama, whereby some devotees were explaining means telling. You don't explain things to Prabhupada, you can tell something to Prabhupada, but they were telling how, but Prabhupada, we are part of the Hare Krishna movement. We are part of Mahaprabhu's mission of introducing the holy name, chanting, practicing Bhakti devotional service. Varnashram seems to be like secondary. We are as Vaishnavas, why do we need Varnashram? And those of you who have, either in the past or more recently, heard that exchange, will remember Prabhupada's answer, it is not so easy to be Vaishnava. It is not so easy to be Vaishnava. And to become Vaishnava, that system of Varna and Ashram has been established. This fourth science, which is what is being described here, this fourth science, science of economy, which deals actually the formula or the reference in Shastra, is in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which you all know, we all know as devotees. Krishi Gurakshavanijam Vaisha Karma Swabhavajam. This is the mantra or the formula for perfect economy, for sustainable scientific economy. And we are missing the point. The whole world is missing the point. Modern day leaders are totally devoid of Vedic knowledge, obviously. Our whole world is on the brinks of total destruction. And Prabhupada would remind us, this movement is practically speaking the only movement. This knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, is the only knowledge that can actually save the world. When the Lord descends, He has a mission. It's the same mission, ultimately, to bring us up to our real identity and constitutional nature. What we tend to forget, very important point, which I didn't realize in my early years. When we speak of sanatana dharma, the eternal dharma, the eternal occupation, the eternal nature of the living entity, we generally, and that's the main focus, we could say, presently within our society, probably within most spiritual organizations as well, we generally focus on, yes, the activities of the spirit soul, which is Bhakti, devotional service, the 9 processes from Shraddha to Prema, which is of course totally correct and bona fide in terms of what the jiva, what the soul is all about. So that's, yes, that is our eternal spiritual dharma. But we fail to understand, or sometimes we don't even know, that there's also an eternal material swadharma. There's a natural and eternal prescribed, we hear about prescribed duties, isn't it? In Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Prescribed duties is connected with both our spiritual duties as a spirit soul and also our material duties and responsibilities being here conditioned in the material world. There's a system, there's a way, there's a lifestyle. There are sciences that are given in the Shastra, means that are given by Krishna, that are meant to be followed, that are making up actually the basis of the Vedic culture, from which we have in modern day society, in a big way, in a major way, completely deviated from. And what we need to understand as devotees and as a society is that not only are we meant to induce and encourage and introduce the holy name and the practice of bhakti devotional service to the whole world, but we're also meant to introduce this lifestyle. Otherwise, why would Prabhupada speak about simple living and high thinking? This lifestyle, which means an agrarian lifestyle. Modern day society, as we know, is rushing towards ever-increasing urbanization. It's rushing towards ultimate destruction. Prabhupada told us, modern day society is a doomed, modern civilization is a doomed civilization. It is based on artificial, impractical, unsustainable principles and practices. And therefore this knowledge, this is what is being described here. Krishna and Balaram and the residents of Vrindavan, they are living that science. They are living that lifestyle, that agrarian lifestyle. When we agreed to live that prescribed lifestyle that is given in the Shastra, which is, again, agrarian lifestyle, majority of people being meant to live in that environment, rural environment, which means the more we begin to understand this, it's not that we as a society just want to make a few, farm communities here and there. That's like the beginning. That is like a stepping stone. We are meant to actually reintroduce the Vrindavan lifestyle. We are meant to reintroduce agrarian culture, which will facilitate our more easily advancement in Krishna consciousness, ultimately. I will ask a small question. May I ask a small question? Because generally people ask me questions, but I sometimes like to ask questions. Who are the two most important living entities who are very often referred to, glorified, and worshipped in the Vedic culture? Two living entities who have a lot in common. Be careful. It's not exactly a tricky, question, but so if you know, you can mention one of them. Yes.
Go.
He beat you. Yeah, cows. Who said that? Anyways, yeah, cows. Yes. And the other?
Brahmanas.
Brahmanas, yes. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya, Govindaya Namo Namaha. When cows and Brahmanas, not Brahmanas and cows, cows and Brahmanas. Cows and Brahmanas, Prabhupada gives more importance. There's a purport actually which is kind of like, wow. Prabhupada emphasizes it because actually Brahmanas depend on cows. Brahmanas are out of a job. They are jobless, unemployed, if there are no cows. Because they cannot perform any yajna. They need ghee, isn't it? They need grains to put in one of their main activities is to perform, so many different samskaras, establish temples. You can't establish temples, you can't install deities without panchagavya, the 5 components. Milk and yogurt and ghee, cow urine and cow dung are part of the ceremony for installing deities. None of us would be sitting here as initiated devotees if cows are not there. Because Brahmanas could not perform the yajna. Another aspect which is very important also, and we can see Krishna's genius in creating this system. Regardless of which yuga, maybe, okay, Satya Yuga, majority of people, Bhagavatam says in Satya Yuga there's no need of Varnashrama because everyone is, Brahmanically situated in the mode of goodness and beyond. But in all the other yugas, the modes of material nature are very strong. And therefore, to elevate us from the lower modes of nature to at least come to the mode of goodness, cows and brahmanas, cows are the only animal by nature fixed in the mode of goodness. Now maybe some cows in Kali Yuga may not always show or demonstrate because we've abused them in so many ways, etc. But by nature, cows are in the mode of goodness. We know from Shastra how the living entity in the body of a cow automatically gets a human body in this part of the whole cycle, evolutionary process. So it's said that cows and brahmanas belong to the same family. They belong to the same family of goodness. They're both in the mode of goodness. So by nature, when we agree to live as we are meant to live, in the country, close to nature, close to the cows. How many have been to India? A few. How many have been to a village where in that village, when you enter the houses, not only do you enter the living room, but you enter the Goshala. The cows live in the house. Not just mini cows, big cows, regular cows. This was, and in some places, those who are from India will know, cows are so much part of the family that they live with the family. So Krishna has designed, this is Krishna's design, perfect design, has designed society. It's called Vedic sociology. If we want to really understand what is sociology, we have to study Vedic sociology. Vedic sociology is Varnashrama. It's understanding these four sciences, and Varnashram College is meant to be that place where we have these four faculties. Faculties of philosophy, faculties of education, faculty of politics, faculty of economics. And we need to add a fifth faculty of traditional technologies, because Vedic culture is especially promoting what is called soft technology, as opposed to what we are promoting and seeing and utilizing largely is hard technology, which is very destructive in so many ways. So we cannot, this is like a very simple statement, but a very profound one. The one that Prabhupada makes in the third or fourth line. This is Vedic education. So there, in education, we'll look at that later on this afternoon, there's what we call formal and non-formal. Formal is academic education for brahmanas, and the rest of the population, which is really the vast majority, Kshatriyas will also have some amount. They also go to Gurukul. Krishna and Balaram, after leaving Vrindavan, they went for another type of education, isn't it? In Sandipani Muni Ashram. And they received Kshatriya education. So therefore, there's an urgent need actually for us to introduce Kshatriya Gurukula. Yeah. There's an urgent need to introduce Brahmana Gurukula, Kshatriya Gurukula, Vaishya also. For some, they can go, but generally, as we see in the example here of Krishna and Balaram, by association. The vast majority of education in Vedic culture is done by association, by observation, isn't it? So this means that this is what we should be doing also, wherever it's possible, because to do this we need a good amount of land. Because main activity, which is meant to meet our basic material needs and necessities, is meant to be connected with agriculture and cow protection. Of course, we are a preaching movement, so and this is like a major challenge. We have to address these two aspects, these two levels simultaneously, and it's not easy. Not at all easy for us as a society to be simultaneously, largely, in the frontline preaching, which is generally in the cities, but we also need to be in frontline preaching in our rural communities by understanding what we should be doing in terms of the practical application of our philosophy. We have the greatest philosophy. I mean, we have the perfect philosophy. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 11 to 15. These 5 chapters are Narada Muni's whole detailed explanation on Varnashrama, which is extremely important, especially for householders or our leaders in general to read, to understand. So chapter 11, the title is The Perfect Society, 4 social divisions, isn't it? Chapter 12, The Perfect Society, 4 spiritual divisions. Our aim is perfection. I mean, we're endeavoring, unless we become totally purified, we cannot get out of this material world. So Krishna is telling us, Srila Prabhupada is explaining in so many ways, has given so many instructions in that respect as well, that this whole dimension is not to take us away from bhakti, but rather the opposite. Is meant to help us further enhance and develop and awaken within our hearts the whole essential aspect of bhakti. That's the meaning of Daiva Varnashrama Dharma. Daiva generally means divine. In our case, it means especially devotional, devotionally divine. I'll stop here. Actually, it's one of the few places where you have a wonderful clock right there above the Bhagavatam. You can't miss it. And it's working also. So there's 5 minutes or 6 minutes before 9. We can take a few minutes if there's any comments or questions. Yes. And there's a mic for you.
Yes. So, for establishing Varna Ashram,
yes,
you need the different samskars
yes,
to be. And the first samskar is by propagation, yeah.
yes,
So we see people who join our movement, they haven't been going through the samskars.
yes.
So for them to adopt a Vedic culture,
No problem. You see, Prabhupada had the greatest expectations in training his, we could say, totally uncultured, I mean, separated from the Vedic people in the Western countries. I mean, I'm from Canada. I like so many of us from the Western countries, I mean, I didn't know even the word Krishna until I was 25 years old, you know. What to speak of so many other things. So Prabhupada had the greatest expectation and also hope that by proper association, proper knowledge, by proper cultivation, proper training, anyone, this is this unique feature in many ways of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our Vaishnavacharyas, regardless of from what background one comes from, by proper association. That's the power of the holy name also, the power of bhakti. One who's properly trained knows how to enter into householder life and then actually introduce various samskaras. Definitely that is, the first of the samskaras, Garbhadhana samskara, is most important for us to bring forth such kind of progeny where from the very birth, even before birth, from the very moment of conception, living entities will. We're starting to see, actually, if anyone travels around a little bit, there's a lot being shared, of course, on the media as well. Devotional stories and various preaching activities, etc. But we see in many of our young children, like in December last year, one maybe 10-year-old Gurukul boy from Vrindavan, he established a world record by reciting by heart the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita in 54 minutes, something like that. We have a hard time. we struggle with, a bunch of verses. Here's a young boy, because he's in a proper environment. It was standard before. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was Saraswati Thakur at the age of 7, I believe, he had already memorized. It was part of the culture, whole 700 verses. Previously people who, people had titles of Chaturvedi, Trivedi, means they would learn the entire Vedas. One of my godbrothers, quite some years back, told me when visiting South India, he met somebody who had learned the entire Bhagavatam. It's unthinkable. But there are, in our Vedic culture, there are systems and ways to learn not only verses, but to learn books, entire books. For most of us, it's totally unthinkable and impossible also. So regardless of our disqualification, that is the power of the holy name, that is the power of Mahaprabhu's mercy. It is, why would our acharyas, and especially why would our founder acharya speak so much about and give us, instruction to establish Varnashrama if it's not possible? It is possible. Nothing for devotees is impossible. That conviction, understanding we need to have. But, Prabhupada told us, establish Varnashrama college, we've not done that. In terms of, we have a few places, this is one of them, but we've not introduced this aspect in connection with Varnashrama culture, Vedic culture, agrarian culture. And it's high time we do. Other comment, question? Yes.
I was thinking about, so many thoughts, but...
So many thoughts. Very
yes.
good.
I guess this, how do you approach it seems like a bit of a dichotomy, and historically also that we felt like, okay, we're going to be making it back to Godhead very quickly, and then there's Varnashram, which is like, okay.
You've not heard the purport. I was paraphrasing. You should read it. 1:9:26. Prabhupada is telling this system of Varna and Ashram is meant to accelerate. Meant to accelerate our ability to go back home, back to Godhead. We think otherwise. We think so many things.
Yes.
Right? Because we don't think like Prabhupada thinks, because we don't have that purified consciousness. So as we practice more and more, then we can should begin to understand and appreciate. Seemingly impossible is like, how to change the world today is possible, practically. I mean, who are we? In one sense, we're so few devotees. But it's like Arjuna, the Pandavas, they were outnumbered, but Krishna was on their side. That's it. Okay, we'll close here for now. Before we get a note. Thank you all very much. Jai Grantaraj Bhagavatam Ki. Hare Krishna.
5 p.m. here in the temple room, right? We will meet again at 5 p.m.
Good question. I don't know.
Yes. Not. Yes, 5 in the temple room.
Temple room where?
5 p.m.
5.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll meet here again.
Jai.